everyone, it's me, Ryan Turford. I'm in my house, and you're listening to the most PlayStation-rific podcast on the internet. It's the PlayStation Drive. I'm on a Discord call with my friend Matt Sowinski, and on our journey today, oh my god, there's so many games out right now. We've got so many games that we've been playing, we gotta talk about, so jump on into the PlayStation Drive. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-dow.
Hello, Ryan. How are you doing on this wonderful Thursday morning?
I am doing well today, Matt. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little bit tired. It's been a couple days of not much sleep, but I'm good. It's all good things.
Just some sleepless nights, playing games and doing other stuff. Is that what I'm kind of reading here?
Pretty much.
May have had one or two reviews,
Cranking some reviews and trying to get some stuff done. But yeah, it's all good things. I'm just a little sleepy today, but not too bad.
Very nice, my friend. Well, of course, this is the PlayStation Drive where we talk about PlayStation all the time except for right now. Of course, though, if you like what we do and you want to support the show, of course, first of all, you can subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice, whether it's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. If you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it here on the show. We don't have any to read today, but, it's one of those things where if we do have any, we'll read them during this section of the show. Also, you can subscribe to us if you want to see our beautiful faces every single week over at youtube.com/YumiCapri. We have all of the video versions of our shows there, including this show, as well as audio-only versions of the Nintendo Drive and We the Gamercast, so check that out. Also, if you want early access to this and all of our shows, as well as some exclusive content, patreon.com/YumiCapri is how you do that. Throw a little tip in the old tip jar, and you get early access to this show. It's a little bit early, not a huge early lead, but usually by the time I finish editing it, it'll usually up that day. So real quick, Matt, this next thing that I'm going to talk about is not PlayStation related. I wanted to bring it up because we talked about it on the Xbox Drive yesterday. We have a contest going. And even though the prize isn't PlayStation related, it's still a really cool prize. And I wanted to make sure that we mentioned at least the contest is happening here on this podcast feed. So currently we are giving away a Space Jam Xbox branded controller because we received 3 of them in the mail. Sean's getting one, I'm getting one, and then we are giving one away. So in order to win it, all you have to do is basically leave a 5-star review on the Xbox Drive feed. And when we hit 75 reviews, we will give the controller away to one lucky person who left a review. It would be awesome if you followed us on Twitter and then sent us a screenshot just saying, hey, by the way, this is the review I sent, because then it'll just be easier for us to kind of get to you if you've won. Otherwise, just follow us on Twitter, either myself at Ryan Turford or Sean on Twitter at Sean Capri, or the Xbox Drive will announce the winner there. And if you do see that you've won, but you didn't send us a screenshot, you'll have to reach out to us. But either way, we'll make sure to get that prize gets out to you. So there you go. That's an awesome contest we have that's going on right now. Again, it's Xbox related, but anyone, even someone who has a PlayStation, is obviously open to win it. So that's why I wanted to mention it here as well.
Who doesn't want a dope Space Jam controller? That's so sick. That's so awesome.
Even if it's just to put on your shelf, if you have no Xbox.
Exactly.
It looks cool. Like the Space Jam controllers look really cool. Sean's got all 3 at his house right now. I'm very excited to get mine soon. So look out for that soon. And
even then, you can use it on your computer. You could use it on your phone. So many different use cases. You don't even need an Xbox to use it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like you could use it on almost anything except for a PlayStation 5. So there
exactly.
You go. All right. Let's not delay any further. Let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It is time for the playlist. And Matt, games are out right now. So
oh my God.
We played a whole bunch of games. So I'm going to start with you, and we're going to take a little bit more of a longer stroll on the games this week. So what'd you play this week, my friend?
So I'll start with my second game that I've listed because I feel like the first one we're going to dig into a little bit because we both played it. But I started Ghost of Tsushima, the director's cut, this morning. Early hours, just a couple hours in so far. I jumped basically straight into the Icky expansion because I already platinumed the base game. It's Ryan, it's such a satisfying thing when you sync that trophy, when you sync that save data over, and then all you get is this parade of popping trophies. It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
But yeah, the director's cut so far is really, really cool. It seems like it's going to be a deeply personal story for Jin, which I know they've talked about a little bit, but I don't think it. I'm surprised at how far they seem to be going into his backstory. Combat still feels fantastic. The game still looks beautiful. I just love this universe and this world so much. Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorite games last year. But man, I'm getting my butt kicked, like just trying to kind of like relearn the controls and figure out, you know, how to quickly swap between styles and just the little finer moments. But towards the end of my playing time, right before we kind of started recording this, everything started to click again after about an hour. The game is fantastic. I can't wait to kind of get more into it and see where the rest of the story takes me. So if you know, early thoughts here, I'll have a full review up on our channel in the next 24 to 48 hours probably. But yeah, so I've been playing that. And the other one, which we also have a review up, that's catching a lot of interesting comments and a lot of discourse.
I can imagine.
Marvel's Avengers War for Wakanda. I ripped through the main story. I haven't done stuff like the iconic questline for Black Panther for his, his different costume. I haven't done some of the extra strike missions and stuff, blah, 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 blah. But I have done the main mission, the main story. It just
came out
campaign.
2 days ago, too. So, I mean, you can't expect that either, right? So
yeah. It was okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm maybe a little bit more negative on it than others seem to be, which is part of why, you know, the review is catching a lot of flack, which is fine. People are entitled to their opinions. But for me, I think Wakanda looks beautiful. I think Black Panther himself is awesome, and the surrounding cast is voiced incredibly well. You know, Chris Judge, who voiced Kratos, does a fantastic job with T'Challa. So I love a lot of that. And actually playing Black Panther is a really good time. He feels great. His pounce move is kind of broken.
Yeah.
Like, you can pretty much just, like, teleport across massive spaces of time and space and just be on top of an enemy. And sometimes, you know, that means sliding off a cliff. Sometimes that means, you know, just like kind of warping through a bunch of other stuff. I thought the story itself was fine. It didn't really blow me away in any shape or form. It was okay. It wasn't anything too surprising. It was serviceable.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of wish we saw a little bit more of Wakanda itself. I wanted to see a little bit more of the cities. I really desperately wanted a change up in the mission structure, because if I have to fight another boss that's here, let's attack the legs first, then move slightly up, then move slightly more up, and now you're at the top. Like, it just, there's nothing here that they're doing much differently from what the base game did, which is what I was hoping for. I was hoping for this to be just a little bit different. I wanted them to get a little bit more playful with the way that their missions worked, especially the story stuff, because like, I understand that the other multiplayer stuff needs to be tailored a certain way for that game to function properly, but I was hoping they'd be a little bit riskier and a little bit more creative with the story missions. So I left it feeling just And also, like, the game is horrible of just like throwing every enemy possible at you once you get later on in it. And it's just, you know, the AI isn't that smart, so there'll be certain points where I'm doing like the control missions where you're fighting for A, B, and C, and like I would be at A trying to defend it, and then the AI would also all be at A while B and C are getting massacred. And it's just like, just some frustrations because, I don't know, for me, Ryan, personally, I think this is kind of, I'm still going to try the next expansion. I'm still going to try the next thing because I do care about the characters and I think there's a good game buried in here. But yeah, I don't know if this game is going to recover. I was kind of hoping that this would be the big turnaround point. I just don't know if it is. But what about you? Because I know you played some of it too.
Yeah, honestly, you know, my feelings weren't too much different from yours. I talked about this on the Xbox Drive yesterday with Sean, but I also thought it was just okay. Like, I don't think it was, you know, this revolutionary thing. I didn't think it was amazing. It felt like, as you kind of pointed out, Matt, it just felt like just more Avengers. So if you're interested in more of the same kind of mission structure and play style of main Avengers, then you're probably going to be fine with it. I was also a little more down on the Black Panther character as far as his play style than you, mainly because he's just not the type of character I like to play as, because I usually like to play long-range characters. So like Black Widow, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, those are more my go-tos in the game. Like basically after the second mission, I was like, I can't keep doing this. I'm going back to Kate Bishop and just continuing the rest of the story as her. And then I just have Black Panther in the party, essentially. So, yeah, that's kind of how I felt about playing as him. And you're right, like, the pounce move is totally broken. It goes through blocks and everything, too. So it's just, like, it's really, like, stupidly overpowered, and it's going to have to get tuned at some point. But, yeah, like, just like you, like, I was hoping for more because when they had said that this was an expansion, not just kind of this extra DLC thing, like the Hawkeye or the Kate Bishop stuff, I was expecting more from it. I was expecting maybe a more robust campaign. Because one of the things I liked about the main campaign for Avengers was that the mission structure in the main campaign, for the most part, is actually very different from the rest of the game until you get to some of the later game area like missions, which are more trying to introduce you to kind of the mission structure for the rest of the game essentially. So I was hoping for more of that versus what we got. So yeah, I wish that we would have seen like more deviation with that, but yeah, like you said, I think they had to kind of keep it within like a certain type of structure in order for the rest of the game to function. But yeah, I would have loved to see kind of more unique ideas with the expansion. And that's why I'm disappointed with it. But at the same time, I still think it's good. Like if you like Avengers already and you already like the mission structure and you're not tired of it, then yeah, I think that you're really going to like this. But I think you and I are closer than some of the other opinions we've heard online, and that's totally cool too. Because also I had put the Avengers was a game that I had put down. It was a game I really liked when it came out because again I really liked the campaign, and even like the two smaller campaigns with Hawkeye and Kate Bishop I really liked too. So yeah, I thought this is cool, but I think that the formula is starting to wear on me a little bit, and I think that I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping I would. So there you go. There's Avengers, but the nice thing about it, if you already own the base game, it's free. So I mean, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't think this is the type of thing that'll win someone over who has never played Avengers. Like, I don't think this is a reason to buy the game. But at the same time, like, if you already have it, I think it's a nice bonus. So there is that as well. So there we go. All right, Matt, I played a whole bunch of stuff this week. I played a whole bunch of games besides Avengers. First of all, I finished Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I really enjoyed it. It got a little grindy toward the end. I didn't love just, grinding the arena and stuff like that. But I thought it was a fun game. The one thing I will say about it, though, and why it's probably not my front runner for Game of the Year this year, as much as I did enjoy my time with it, is just the Ratchet and Clank formula is starting to feel like what I just described with the Avengers formula, where it's been pretty much unchanged since the earlier Ratchet and Clank games. Like, there are some subtle differences in this one, and some of the weapons are different, but you're mostly just doing the same stuff that you did, like, all the way back to, like, Ratchet and Clank going commando for the most part. So I didn't find, like, besides, like, the dimensional rifts and stuff like that, I didn't find that was too much different as far as the gameplay was concerned. So I really hope, like, when they inevitably do another Ratchet and Clank game, because this game is already done really well. I'm imagining Insomniac is going to want to do another one at some point. Like, this is probably not the last one. I really hope that they kind of overhaul the gameplay formula, because that's my one takeaway from this game. As much as I like the story and the visuals and the comedy and stuff with Ratchet, I do think the formula is a little bit stale, and I hope that they kind of switch it up next time. Although the weapons were still really fun to control, and if you like the Ratchet games, then I think you're going to really like it as well. But since for someone like me who's played every single Ratchet game, that's kind of where I run into this problem. If you're new to the franchise, you're probably not going to have the same issue, but I've played literally every Ratchet game going all the way back to the PS2. So it is harder for me to, separate that from how I feel about the game. So there's that. I played that, really enjoyed it. It's definitely in kind of my top 5 for games of this year, but it's definitely not my number 1. I also played Hades. I talked about this on the Xbox Drive since this is on Xbox Game Pass, and I played it for the very first time, and people know I'm not really into roguelike games, so I wanted to give this a try because I'd heard so many people talk about the fact that this was kind of their entry into roguelikes, even though they didn't really like that before. But for me, as much as I like kind of the characters and the world of Hades and kind of the visuals, I just was not feeling it. Like, after I gave it 3 hours, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it 3 hours to kind of win me over, and if it doesn't, I'm going to probably put it down. And unfortunately, it didn't really win me over because I just don't really like roguelike mechanics. It's just not my thing. But I wanted to try it because I'd heard so many great things about it, and I'm glad that it's on Game Pass for people to try. Plus, it's also out on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 as well, so you can purchase it there. So I'm glad I at least tried it, so that I know kind of why people love this game, because I can definitely understand why people like this game now. And I know it's not for me, but at the same time, I know that I can definitely respect it for being an impressive game, despite the fact that I don't really want to go play it myself. So there's that. And then the last thing I played, Matt, and I'm actually surprised you didn't get a chance to check this out, but I know you had a busy play yesterday. The Tales of Arise demo. Holy crap. I loved the demo for Tales of Arise. Like this,
really?
If you want to talk about a game that's a Ryan Turford game, Tales of Arise is definitely a Ryan Turford game through and through. I mean, the combat just felt so smooth and fun to play. It runs at a crisp 60 frames per second on PlayStation 5 because I actually played the demo on PlayStation and Xbox because I had a Japanese PlayStation account, so I actually ended up downloading the demo like way earlier than it was supposed to actually go up. So I actually played it that way and loved the demo. Again, you don't really get like story tidbits in the demo, but I'm actually glad that we didn't get that in the demo because it's not like a lot of other demos we've had recently where the progress carries over because it starts you at the beginning of the game. This one starts you kind of in the middle of the game. Basically, all of your characters are level 25. So I imagine this is probably like 5 or 10 hours into the game. And you're basically going from like this one end of this plane to the city, but you can't go into the city yet because you have to go beat a boss in the open world, essentially. And that's kind of the extent of the demo. So it's a pretty short demo. It lasted about an hour, but I just had a really good time playing it. I love switching between all the characters because you play in a party of 4, and then 2 of your characters kind of outside of battle, but you can switch between any of the 6 characters at any time. So if there's a particular character that you like, you can switch to them at any time and play as that character, which of course has been a mainstay in the Tales series before. Like this isn't anything new for anyone who's played a Tales game before, but I'm glad that one of the things I was worried about before this game came out was that they were going to remove that feature because they had really only showed us kind of the main character playing as them before, but then we hadn't seen kind of the gameplay of the other characters. So I loved mixing and matching the different character skills together. I also like that one of the new things they did where they have all of your party members mapped to your D-pad, and if you press the one associated with their face, they'll actually pop in out of nowhere and kind of do this like move that's associated with them. Like they'll do like a high-powered art essentially, and they rotate on a cooldown. Which I thought was pretty cool. So it almost felt like summoning characters to do like the one-off attacks in like Marvel vs. Capcom or like a tag team-based fighting game or something like that. But yeah, I really love the combat mechanics in this game. It's a very gorgeous game, and as long as they nail the story in this game, I think this is going to be like very high on my list for favorite games of this year. So I'm very excited to play the full game at this point. So I'm very high on it.
I have a question because I was going to be like, I downloaded the demo and I just haven't had a chance to jump into it. Does it feel like a quote unquote like next gen Tales game? Because I know that was kind of like, that's kind of the narrative that they've been pushing. Like they've overhauled the combat, they've overhauled the looks, like, and it very much looks like it. Does it feel like it? Like does the combat feel like a big step forward?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It basically takes the combo system that we had in Tales of Berseria, but I think it evolves it in a really smart and interesting way, where you have like kind of your little like combo points along the bottom of your character that you have to kind of charge up over time. Like if you use too many abilities at once, you'll deplete them and you'll have to basically switch to your basic attacks while it recharges, which is again what we saw in Tales of Berseria is kind of back this time around, but it just flows so much better together this time around, and that's kind of really what I wanted. And the arts just feel really satisfying to pull off. One thing that's new this time around is there's jumping in combat, which has always been there in the Tales games, but you have different arts when you're jumping as opposed to when you're on the ground. So you can actually like knock enemies into the air and then combo them in the air, like something you do in like Devil May Cry or something like that, which is just so satisfying to pull off, especially against some of the bosses and stuff like that. And some of the characters have like really crazy combos with like their air and ground attacks, and you're kind of just juggling them back and forth. So yeah, I'm really excited for people to get a chance to play this game. And I'm excited to play the full game. It looks and plays awesome. So there you go. That's the extent of Tales of Arise, but I'm sure we'll be talking about it in the next couple of weeks because we've only got like 3 weeks to go before the game's fully out. So
I can't wait.
Yeah. Same here. All right, let's slam the brakes on this conversation. It is time for some breaking news. Now, it's been a very slow news week in the world of PlayStation this week, Matt. I don't know if you knew this. I literally went to the PlayStation blog to go look for news stories this week, and they literally hadn't really like updated the blog much this week. So we have a couple of news stories here now. Of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Blue Box Studios for another week on this show, Matt. Hopefully, this is going to be the last time we talk about Blue Box for a while. But we got some more information. So obviously, last time we left this story was when they were having all kinds of problems with the app, the real-time experience that they posted. We didn't know when it was going to get fixed. They're just like, oh, we'll fix it at some point, and we'll tell you when it's fixed. That was all we kind of knew about the real-time showcase for Abandoned. But since the podcast went up, they've actually updated the app correctly, and they fixed whatever the issue is, and they basically posted the 4-second teaser that we saw on Twitter last week. with no other information or anything like that. And then check back soon for another teaser. So Hassan, who actually works for Blue Box, did an interview with IGN this week, and he stated that the gameplay reveal for Abandon is still months away at this point. This is his words saying this. But a 30-second extended version of that teaser that we saw should be going up sooner than those couple months before we see the gameplay reveal of this game. Before we actually even know what this game is, which kind of leads me back to what I was joking about last week, but I was really hoping what wasn't going to happen, whereas, when they finally update the app, we're going to be even more confused than we were before. And at this point, we are still even more confused than we were before. We have so many more questions about this. So, Matt, I got to ask you, what do you think about this situation with the Abandoned app?
I just, at this point, am both entirely surprised and not at all. Like, I just can't believe that they were hyping this up so much to just basically drop a tiny little teaser that is nothing new. I don't really know what to think anymore. Ryan, I know we've been kind of over the last few months bouncing back and forth between yes, Konami, no Konami, yes, Kojima, no. I have no idea. Yeah. I have no earthly idea, but I have to ask because I saw this come across Twitter a couple days back. Did you see that massive post about how apparently Blue Box is actually a scam?
Yeah.
Did you see this?
I did. In fact, Nate the Hate did a podcast about this because Nate's kind of an industry insider. Both him and MVG did this discussion about this because they basically compiled all the information that they had about Blue Box Studios going all the way back to 2015, where essentially they had found that they had done this similar situation where essentially they would announce a project, they would announce a playable teaser of some kind would be coming to the game, and then it would never come out. And they did this 2 or 3 times. They did actually release one game. I can't remember the name off the top of my head of the game that they released, but they did actually release one game on Steam that you can go. The Haunting. Yeah, it apparently is not good, but it exists. I mean, they did actually release a game and actually pull through with this. So people were thinking that the app was just never going to be updated. Whereas it looks like maybe they saw that people were kind of onto this and they added the quick Twitter thing there just to kind of placate these rumors about it. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what to think anymore at this point. I think definitely this is kind of killed what I had kind of any type of conspiracy theory stuff I had come up with before, where I was leaning more into the conspiracy theory side the last time we talked about it. Whereas now I think okay, I'm back to basically thinking calmly and rationally about this. This is probably just an indie studio that has no idea what they're doing, or they do this all the time. Or as kind of Nate mentioned on his podcast, he had talked about the idea that maybe they're doing it so that they get so Hassan or the other developers at Blue Box kind of get their names on the map. I don't really know what to think anymore, but I don't want to talk about this story ever again on this show because at this point, who knows? I'm at the point where I just don't really care anymore. Matt, what do you think though? Where's your heart at with this story?
I'm entirely with you. I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm so over this entire thing. I feel like I've been elated, excited, disappointed, and everything in between. I just don't understand what the plan is here. I don't understand what the idea is. They are doing so much, but at the same time, so nothing, that I just want them to go away, figure out what it is that they're doing, and then come back when they're ready to talk about it. And then sure, we'll talk about it again. We'll see what they're doing. But this has to be one of the most bizarre marketing campaigns, if you want to call it that. I just want them to stop, work on the game, figure it out, and then when they're ready, let's talk about it then, because this entire thing is just ridiculous at this point.
Yeah. I mean, at this point too, if it was if the 4-second trailer was all they had to show us that they showed us on, Twitter, why didn't they just tell us before that that's all it was? That's why I'm they don't know what they're doing, or as people pointed out, maybe it's a scam or some kind of, or maybe it was planned this way. I don't know anymore. But either way, hopefully this is the last time we have to talk about Blue Box for a while. And like you said, when we actually know what this is, and there's actually, something to talk about, then we'll talk about this again. But I had to bring it up here because we couldn't just leave it unfinished from last week. So we did have to talk about it at least a little bit. But we do have some other quick announcements kind of to talk about this week, which I thought were interesting. Number one, Goodbye Volcano High, which was one of the indie games that we saw during the PlayStation 5 showcase last year when they first announced it, has been delayed until 2022. They didn't really say when it's coming out, but I thought that game looked really promising and interesting when they showed it because it was this like cartoonish game. There's like this coming of age story with these animals. Like I thought it looked really interesting, and I was curious to see what this game actually looked like. But it's been delayed until sometime next year. So I'm excited to see more of this next year when we find out about it. Next up, during the Switch Indie Showcase, I didn't actually put this on the doc, Matt, because I had forgot about this. But Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon was re-revealed. So this got announced a while ago, all the way back in late 2019, I think, where it's essentially a Shovel Knight puzzle game, but it's going to be a match-3 puzzle game, very similar to something like Puzzle Quest, for example, that came out on the Xbox 360 and PS3, which was essentially like a RPG mixed with a puzzle game, if that makes any sense. And you essentially like level up your characters and stuff like that, and it plays into how the puzzles work, which I thought it was really interesting. So that got re-revealed, and it's coming to PlayStation 4 at the end of this year. So they haven't given an exact release date, but they just said holiday 2021. I'm actually pretty excited to check this one out. Have you checked out any of the gameplay from this one? Or are you excited about it at all, Matt?
Yeah, I looked into it. Not really my type of game. I'm generally not too much of a fan of puzzle-heavy games, especially like this kind of match 3 style stuff. I think it's fine. I just get bored with it pretty quickly. I mean, if Yacht Club is doing it, it's probably going to be something pretty special. Everything that they've touched has been really exciting. Shovel Knight itself is a fantastic, incredible game. I just don't know if this version of Shovel Knight is for me.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, yeah, you'd have to probably be really into puzzle games to probably be into this one. I like puzzle games, and I love Shovel Knight, so I'm very excited to check this one out. And then next up, the next two stories are ESRB stories. But the thing about the ESRB being the ratings board is that they don't rate fake games. So, I mean, for the most part, unless these get canceled at the last minute, we can assume they're coming. And especially the first one we're going to read here, I anticipate will actually already be announced by the time you're listening to this. But it just happens to be it's getting announced after we record today. So we just don't know for sure. But a re-release of 1996's Quake has been rated by the ESRB for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, with, of course, QuakeCon happening this afternoon. Basically, they've already announced that as part of QuakeCon, they're going to be doing a panel with Machine Games going over the 25th anniversary of Quake, and I imagine that this is going to basically shadow drop this afternoon. But again, that's something that you guys probably already know about by the time you're listening to this. But we don't know about it now. I'm actually super excited about this, Matt, because I loved Quake back in the day. I played it on PC because I had like my big box PC copy of Quake and really liked it. What I liked about it was that it was basically a first-person shooter like Doom, but it took place in this like cool like gothic medieval castle setting, but you had like futuristic weapons and like all kinds of crazy like gothic horror enemies that you kind of took them down with guns. And I thought it was just a really cool and unique game that we still haven't really seen anything since, because especially with Quake, there have been so many Quake sequels, but even after the first one, they went in a completely different direction with the series, because Quake 2 was almost like this alien invasion story where you're like going to this alien planet with the Strogg, which are this like machine, like human race that you basically are trying to take down to, liberate the planet from the Strogg. And then they kind of focused on the Strogg for Quake 4 as well. And then Quake 3 was just a multiplayer only game. So I'm actually really excited to replay Quake. I love the original Quake. I'm glad that it's coming to consoles again. I imagine it's going to be very similar to the Doom re-releases we got a couple years ago when they did like Doom 64 or just the first 3 Doom games on PlayStation. So either way, I'm excited to find out more about this. Plus, I have a sneaking suspicion, Matt, they may announce a new Quake game today as well. Maybe done by Machine Games, maybe done by someone else. And that would be something I've been asking for forever. Ever since I put down Doom 2016, I'm like, okay, this was awesome, but please, for the love of God, do something like this for Quake, because I think it would be really awesome. But that's how I feel about that. I know, obviously, you're a much younger gamer than me, Matt. You probably haven't played the original Quake, right?
No, I've never played it. So what I want to ask then, Ryan, is would you rather them kind of, what's it called? Blue Point style remake the original Quake, or would you want to see them kind of do like what Doom did in 2016 and kind of revamp it, change it, and bring it back in a different way? Like, which would you rather see happen first?
I would rather them do kind of the Doom 2016, like reinvent the wheel with Quake kind of thing, but maybe go back to kind of the old school original Quake aesthetic rather than doing this like, weird cybernetic future Quake. Like I think that would be a much more interesting direction to go in, because I think at that point it'd be too similar to Doom. I think if they went in that direction, if they want kind of with the Quake 2 or Quake 4 aesthetics, and I want to see them do like something like really visually different. So that's why I would prefer to do something like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't turn down a Quake reboot like Bluepoint style, but I would rather see kind of like a reinvention from the ground up, much like Doom 2016. I think that would be really awesome, and especially, or even if they did something like what they did with Wolfenstein. Like if this was Machine Games working on this,
right?
I think that would be like really awesome, and I would love to see kind of their take on, the Quake franchise, especially with how awesome of a job they did with Wolfenstein. So I think it would make perfect sense. It's the only one of the main kind of 3 pillar id franchises that hasn't come back yet, or even 4 if you include Rage, because they did Rage 2, they did Doom, they did Wolfenstein, and they've never gone back to do Quake. So like I think this would be the perfect time to reboot Quake and kind of do something with it again. They did Quake Champions, which was like this online PC only hero shooter. That wasn't that great, and that was nothing like the old Quake games, but it was there. So that's really the only thing they've done with Quake since then. So I really hope this is the start of something new with Quake. And then last story, also another ESRB leak. So a new Disney collection has been rated by the ESRB called the Disney Classic Games Collection, which will contain Aladdin, The Lion King, and The Jungle Book. It is coming to PlayStation 4. What I thought was weird about this one, though, Matt, is that we already have a collection on PlayStation 4 of The Lion King and Aladdin called like the Disney Classic Games Aladdin and Lion King Collection. So really all you're getting with this one is Jungle Book on top of it, but I'm assuming it's not an upgrade for the game you already have. So it's probably a separate purchase to rebuy these games, I guess. I don't know why this is a thing. I'm excited about it because I like Jungle Book. I think it's a fun game. And these other games, Lion King and Aladdin, are great too. But I already have that. I already bought the Disney Classic games with Aladdin and Lion King. So I don't know why this is a thing. Maybe it's a package for people who didn't buy the Aladdin and Lion King one. Maybe they're trying to get people with double dipping. I don't know with this one. Again, you're also a much younger gamer too, Matt. I don't think you've played any of these games, right? Because these are all Genesis games.
No, I haven't. I think it's super weird though, Ryan. Like I would hope that they're going to offer some sort of quote unquote like upgrade path for people who already own it to just get Jungle Book, because I feel it's really weird just to kind of rebundle it with one extra thing. But all I've ever heard about these games is how brutally difficult they are. So that's been kind of one of the reasons why I've always wanted to try it. I just hear how hard Lion King is. So maybe I'll get around to trying these once we see what this actually is. Because yeah, I think it's a little weird that they're re-releasing it again just with a new thing added rather than a whole new collection. But I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, it's just very bizarre. I don't know what's going on with it, but it exists, and we know it's coming because, again, the ESRB does not rate fake games, so I imagine we'll be hearing about this one soon. It might just shadow drop, or what they did with Disney, Aladdin and Lion King, they announced it one day, and then it was out like 3 weeks later. So I imagine they'll do something very similar to that. But these games are really fun, but to your point, Matt, they're very hard, especially Lion King, which is brutally difficult. One of the hardest Genesis games. So I just can't believe I actually beat it for the Platinum Trophy, because I do have the Platinum Trophy in this collection. So there you go. All
nice.
Right. Let's let some of our friends into the car with us. It is time for the carpool. Listeners at home, if you would like to be part of the carpool, there's a number of ways to do that. Number one, if you're watching us right here on YouTube, you can leave your question in the comments of this video, and we will actually read it on next week's show. Number two, if you are on our Discord server, which is actually free to join, the link is in the description of the video or on the show notes on the podcast feed. You can join our Discord server, go to the PlayStation Drive section, and just say you've got a question, tag one of us in it, and we'll answer it on the show. And that could just be any day of the week. Or last but not least, if you hit us up on Twitter, at Ryan Turfordder, at Burnout_Brighter, sorry.
Burnout_Matt.
Jeez, I'm just off my game today. Burnout_Matt. Anyways, we tweet out a question post every single Wednesday asking for questions. So you can tweet at us there and get your question read on the show. Just like DatNinjaDev did over on Discord. He asked the question, with the rumored date and 8/17 announcement of the next State of Play to be held on 8/19 now come and gone, do we think we will get another State of Play before November. So there was a big rumor that people were thinking a new State of Play was going to get announced before Gamescom. That didn't happen. And now we don't know when a new State of Play is coming. So I personally think that we will get one before November. But I guess it just depends on what PlayStation really has to show, because we already kind of are assuming they don't have anything else from PlayStation first party for the rest of the year. And they've already shown Deathloop multiple times this year. So I don't know if it would be worth it to do another like Deathloop one. So I am curious to see when we will see another one. But yes, I think there will be another one before November, even if it's them just teeing up stuff for the beginning of next year, like maybe when they're ready to kind of finally unveil kind of the Horizon release date for, let's say, like next February or something like that. I imagine they'll have one before the end of the year for that. But yeah, like that's kind of where I think. But I mean, the summer's not over. Summer Game Fest is still happening, and PlayStation's part of Summer Game Fest, Matt. But Summer Game Fest also lasted literally until this year before Jeff Keighley finally said, "Oh yeah, we're out of Summer Game Fest." So you never know with that. But Matt, what do you think about this question?
I agree with you, Ryan. Like, I do think we need one. I would guess that sometime leading up to Deathloop in September. My guess would be September if this August, theoretical leak has come and gone. Because I know a lot of people were thinking that because the new Call of Duty is going to be unveiled, they might kind of pair a State of Play with that, which would make sense given their partnership before. I think that kind of leading up to Deathloop, I think they need to do something. Like, we haven't even had official confirmation from PlayStation that Horizon's been delayed to 2022 yet, right? That was like, there were reports going on, but we haven't had official confirmation from PlayStation, which to me means that like either they're going to drop it in a blog post or they're going to announce it in a new State of Play, which I think they kind of need to do. I think they need to show off a little bit more about even like stuff like indies or third-party partnerships that they might have for this fall and going into 2022, because we don't know too much outside of, theoretical Horizon, because again, they haven't confirmed anything. I do think November would be way too late to kind of, get there and do that. So for me, I think September, kind of leading up to Deathloop, to kind of keep people talking, keep people interested, because Deathloop is the last thing that we know about with the date from PlayStation. So yeah. I would hope that September would come, and if they don't do it before that, obviously, I would hope that in September, kind of leading up to Deathloop, would be the time that they finally do it, because I'm just curious to know more. I'm just not like, there's so much coming out, there's so much going on this fall that I don't really need a PlayStation first party game imminently, but I just want to know what's coming.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that putting a roadmap for, the early part of 2022 and then, what's coming out next fall, I think that's more than anything what we need to hear from PlayStation. So that's why I don't think you're right. I don't think they need to do it right away. It just needs to be when they're ready to talk about this stuff. Like when they actually have stuff to talk about, I think is when we'll see it. So yeah, that's why I think we'll see one before November. To DatNinjaDev's question, as to when, probably September, maybe October. Probably not too late in the year, but yeah, so they can kind of promote some of the fall third-party games, I guess. So to your point with like Call of Duty and stuff like that. All right, last question comes to us from Seumas MacIsaac at Famous Seumas on Twitter, and he asks, "What is your favorite demo that you played on a PlayStation console?" So, and this can go all the way back to PS1, I guess, because we had demo discs back in the day on PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Nowadays, we just download the demos, but. For this question, honestly, I didn't really have a really good answer because obviously, again, I think we've talked about it before, but my favorite demos are kind of the demos that do allow you to carry your progress over and are just the start of the game. So you can kind of keep going with the game essentially when you get it. I think it's always awesome when they do that. So for me, I don't really have like a standout demo. So I'm going to actually just say Siberia on PlayStation 1 because that game is so goofy and weird and it has so many like goofy deaths in the demo. Like you try and disarm a bomb, but you don't disarm it, and then you see just like this like really dumb cutscene of the place blowing up and stuff like that. Oh, it was such a fun PlayStation 1 demo that was in like original PlayStation magazine. So that was probably my favorite demo because I played it all the like so many times just to see how many goofy deaths were in it, because that's like an infamously bad like point and click adventure game. That was out on PC, but it for some reason got a PlayStation 1 port. And it's a really bad game, but that's part of the reason why I like the demo for it. But as far as like modern demos, I have to think, because I can't just say the Tales of Arise one because of not just because of how recent it is, but I don't know if it's such a good demo. Like it showed off just how fun the combat was, but it doesn't give you really a sense of like the story or much else about the game beyond that. I really like the Scarlet Nexus demo as well. But for the most part, like, I don't know, as far as demos are concerned, there aren't really too many that come to mind as kind of my favorites. But what about you, Matt? Do you have a notable demo in your life that you've really enjoyed?
Yeah, so this question made me think of one specifically, but to kind of lead up to that, I miss that era of demo discs so much. Like, you would just have 10 to 15 random games on a disc that you would just kind of flip through and be like, what's this? Does it work? And some of those demos were horribly broken. Some of them barely worked. Some of them were kind of like, oh, cool, this is so exciting. I loved getting those discs and popping them in and seeing. So to kind of bring that forward, I think my latest favorite demo is probably the PlayStation VR demo disc that came with the PSVR, because there were so many cool things, and like especially in the early days of VR, we used that disc so much, and of course like we ended up downloading it, but like the Heist demo is probably one of my favorite demos ever, just because of how much it works as a VR tech showcase, right? I mean, like, you get there, the sense of perspective, being in the car, shooting other people. It's accessible. It's an action movie type thing. So even new people to VR or gaming in general, it's an easy buy-in, and it just worked. It worked well, and like even like the load-in area where you'd be choosing which demo you wanted to play was beautifully done and just so interesting. I just think that like that demo disc for PSVR was so good, with so many really cool experiences. And I loved that one, but specifically for me, it was, the Heist that was just so much fun to play through. I thought that was a fantastic demo disc.
I can't believe I forgot about that, because actually you're right. That was like a really good demo disc that had like a bunch of different VR stuff in it. So yeah, I think that's a good one. Another one I can't believe I didn't even think of until just now while you were talking, PT, another fantastic demo.
Right.
Well. Like I totally forgot about PT. It's been so long since I played it, but that was an amazing demo that was basically kind of like its own game in a lot of ways. So, that was another one that I was kind of thinking of just now. But yeah, you're right. Like the VR one is probably like one of the best like modern demos for PlayStation, probably. It just gave you like so much stuff to play, even just right out of the box for your PlayStation VR, even if you didn't have any games that you'd bought. Like it was just really, really, really cool. But anyways, that's going to do it for this week's show. But before we go, Matt plugs go.
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at @burnout_Matt. And you can find us on YouTube at Burnout Writer, where we have a bunch of cool reviews in our podcast and a bunch of other stuff.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You also find us on YouTube, youtube.com/YumiCapri, and patreon.com/YumiCapri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Matt Sawinski, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 14 of the PlayStation Drive. And we're out. PlayStation Drive is fueled by patrons over at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of our patrons from the bottom of my heart from your support across all of our content. And let's start by thanking our premium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and Jonathan Brown over at youtube.com/PM Entertainment. Our platinum producers, Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth. And our gold members, Argo, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Emily O'Kelly, Heather Boney, James Johnson, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Benji Kong, Marcus O'Neill, RJ Kern, Dano, Skinny Matt, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, Fulia Fuji, and Xavier Reyes. Thank you all for all of your support. Now, on with the show.